Amara Johnson stepped off the yellow school bus, her black curls bouncing slightly as she adjusted the strap of her backpack. The air smelled faintly of freshly cut grass and chalk dust, a mix that felt both familiar and strange. It was her first day at Maplewood High, and even though she had moved to this small town with her mom just 2 weeks ago, she wasn't nervous. Not really. Amara had always been good at adapting. She took a deep breath, looked around at the sprawling red brick building ahead of her and smiled. The students milling about seemed like any other group of teenagers. Some were laughing loudly, tossing footballs or showing off new sneakers. Others stood in tight clusters whispering secrets or scrolling through their phones. And then there were kids like Ethan Carter, sitting quietly under a tree near the edge of the campus, his nose buried in a sketchbook. He didn't notice Amara at first, or maybe he pretended not to, but when she walked past him, their eyes met for a brief second. She gave him a quick nod before continuing toward the main entrance. Ethan blinked, surprised by the small gesture, and watched her go. Inside the school, things moved quickly. Amira found her homeroom without much trouble, thanks to the map she'd studied the night before. The classroom buzzed with chatter as students settled into their seats. A girl with bright pink hair turned to her and introduced herself as Mia. "You're new, right?" Mia asked, leaning over. "Yeah," Amara replied with a friendly smile. "Just moved here." "Cool. Where from?" "Detroit." Mia's eyes widened. "Wow, that's a big change. This place is super boring compared to Detroit," Amara chuckled. "Maybe, but I think it'll be okay." As the morning went on, Amara got a crash course in the social hierarchy of Maplewood High. There were the popular kids, the athletes, the cheerleaders, and the ones who always seemed to be in charge. Then, there were the quieter students, the ones who blended into the background unless someone decided to pick on them. And finally, there were the bullies. They weren't hard to spot. Their names were Jake, Tyler, and Brianna, and they ruled the hallways like they owned the place. Jake was tall and broad-shouldered, with a smirk that never left his face. Tyler, his best friend, followed him everywhere, cracking jokes that made people laugh more out of fear than amusement. Brianna rounded out the trio, her sharp tongue cutting deeper than any insult Jake or Tyler could come up with. Together they were unstoppable, or so they thought. By lunchtime, Amara already knew enough to steer clear of them. But avoiding trouble wasn't always easy. As she stood in line at the cafeteria waiting to grab a tray, she heard raised voices coming from a nearby table. Turning her head, she saw Jake towering over someone smaller, Ethan. His sketchbook lay open on the floor, its pages torn and scattered. Jake sneered down at him. "What's this? Baby pictures of your imaginary friends?" Tyler snickered while Brianna flipped through one of the pages. "These are actually kinda cool," she said mockingly. "Too bad no one cares what you think." Ethan's face burned red as he tried to gather his things. "Give those back," he mumbled, reaching. For the book, Brianna held it out of reach. "Say please." Amara clenched her fists. She hated seeing anyone treated like that, especially someone who clearly didn't deserve it. Taking a step forward, she called out, "Hey!" All eyes turned to her. Jake crossed his arms. "What do you want?" "I want you to leave him alone," Amara said firmly. Her voice carried across the room, silencing the chatter. "He didn't do anything to you." Jake raised an eyebrow. "And why should we listen to you?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Amara shot back. "Or are you too scared to admit you're picking on someone half your size?" The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others looking uncomfortable. Jake hesitated, caught off guard by her boldness. Finally, he dropped the sketchbook onto the table and stepped back. "Whatever. Let's go." With that, he and his friends stormed off, leaving behind a stunned silence. Ethan stared at Amara, unsure of what to say. She bent down to help him, collect his drawings. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. He nodded, still speechless. Yeah. Thanks." "No problem." She handed him the last page and smiled. "Don't let them get to you. Your art's really good, by the way." "For The first time all day, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Maybe things wouldn't be so bad after all, not if someone like Amara was around. By the end of the day, word about what happened in the cafeteria had spread like wildfire. Students whispered about Amara's confrontation with Jake, Tyler, and Brianna, replaying the scene in their minds. Some were impressed by her courage. Others were hesitant to say anything at all, afraid of drawing attention to themselves. But one thing was clear. Amara Johnson wasn't someone who backed down easily. Ethan Carter couldn't stop thinking about her either. After years of being pushed around and ignored, he wasn't used to having someone stand up for him, let alone someone as confident and fearless as Amara. He kept replaying the moment in his head. The way she had called out Jake without flinching. The way she had helped him pick up his torn sketches. It made him feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next morning, Ethan arrived at school early, clutching his repaired sketchbook tightly against his chest. He still wasn't sure if he should thank Amara or just pretend nothing had happened. When he spotted her walking toward her locker, his heart started racing. What if she didn't want to talk to him? What if she thought he was weird? But before he could change his mind, Amara turned and saw him. She smiled brightly. "Hey, Ethan." "Hey," he stammered, feeling his cheeks grow warm. I just wanted to say thanks for yesterday. You didn't have to do that." Amara shrugged like it was no big deal. "Yeah, I did. Nobody deserves to be treated like that." She glanced at the sketchbook in his hands. "Are those your drawings?" Ethan hesitated but then nodded. "Yeah, they're kind of my thing. Can I see?" she asked. He froze for a second, unsure if he wanted to share something so personal. But there was something about the way Amara looked at him, with genuine curiosity and kindness, that made him trust her. Slowly, he handed over the book. Amara flipped through the pages, her eyes widening with each new image. There were fantastical creatures with glowing eyes, sprawling cities floating among the clouds, and intricate landscapes that seemed almost alive. Every detail was carefully drawn, every line filled with passion and imagination. "These are incredible," she said finally, looking up at him. "You're really talented." Ethan blinked, caught off guard by her praise. No one had ever called his art incredible before. "Thanks," he mumbled, scratching the back of his neck. "I've been working on them for a while." "You should keep going," Amara said firmly. "This is amazing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." For the first time in what felt like forever, Ethan felt proud of himself. Maybe his art wasn't just something to hide away in his room. Maybe it meant something. Over the next few days, Amara made a point to sit with Ethan during lunch. At first, he was nervous about it. Sitting alone under the tree had become his routine, his safe space. But Amara didn't take no for an answer. "Come on," she said one afternoon, grabbing her tray. "You can't eat out here every day. Let's go." Reluctantly, Ethan followed her to a quieter corner of the cafeteria where a few other students sat. They weren't part of any particular group, just kids who preferred to stay out of the drama, but they welcomed Amara with smiles. One of them, a boy named Alex, even cracked a joke that made everyone laugh, including Ethan. As the days went by, Ethan began to open up more. He told Amara about his love for graphic novels and how he dreamed of creating his own someday. She listened intently, asking questions and offering encouragement. "You should start small," she suggested one day. "Maybe write a short story and draw some panels to go with it, just to see how it feels." "I don't know," Ethan said, doubtfully. "What if it's not good enough?" "It doesn't have to be perfect," Amara replied. "It just has to be yours. That's what makes it special." Her words stuck with him long after their conversation ended. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to imagine a future where his art mattered, not just to him, but to others, too. Meanwhile, Jake, Tyler, and Brianna were growing increasingly frustrated. Their usual tricks weren't working anymore. People were starting to question why they acted the way they did, and some students even avoided them altogether. Brianna especially hated the change. She couldn't stand seeing Amara walk through the halls like she belonged there, like she wasn't afraid of anyone. "She thinks she's better than us?" Brianna muttered to Jake one morning as they stood by their lockers. "We need to teach her a lesson." Jake smirked. "Don't worry, I've got an idea." That afternoon during gym class, Ethan noticed something strange about Amara's locker. It was slightly ajar, and when she opened it fully, paint spilled out, soaking her clothes and shoes. The bright blue color clashed horribly with her white sneakers, leaving streaks everywhere. Laughter erupted from nearby students, most of whom quickly looked away when Amara turned to face them. Ethan felt his stomach drop. He wanted to step forward, to say something, but he didn't know how. Instead, he watched as Amara calmly closed her locker and grabbed a spare set of clothes from her bag. Without saying a word, she headed to the bathroom to clean up. When she returned wearing mismatched sweats and sneakers borrowed from the lost and found bin, Brianna approached her with a smug grin. "Oops," she said loudly. "Looks like someone got into a little accident." Amara didn't react the way Brianna expected. Instead of looking embarrassed or angry, she simply stared at her. "Is this really the best you've got?" she asked, her voice steady. "Because it's pretty pathetic." Brianna faltered, taken aback by Amara's composure. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse, murmuring quietly among themselves. Ethan stood frozen in place, watching as Amara walked away without giving Brianna another glance. Later that evening, Ethan found himself sketching again. This time, though, he wasn't drawing imaginary worlds or fantastical creatures. He was sketching Amara, the way she carried herself, the way she refused to let anyone bring her down. He didn't know exactly what it meant, but he knew one thing for sure. She was changing everything, including him. The next morning, Ethan woke up early. He couldn't stop thinking about what had happened the day before, how Brianna and her friends had tried to embarrass Amara, only to fail completely. Amara didn't seem fazed by their tricks, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Jake, Tyler, and Brianna weren't the kind of people who gave up easily. If anything, they were probably planning something worse. Ethan wanted to warn Amara, but he didn't know how to bring it up without sounding like he was doubting her strength. She had already proven she could handle herself better than anyone else in the school. Still, as he packed his sketchbook into his backpack, he made a mental note to keep an eye out for her throughout the day. When Ethan arrived at school, he spotted Amara near her locker. She was laughing with Mia, the girl with pink hair who seemed to have become one of her closest friends since her first day. Amara looked completely at ease, as if nothing bad had ever happened to her. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then walked over. "Hey," he said softly, clutching his sketchbook to his chest. Amara turned and smiled when she saw him. "Hey, Ethan, what's up?" "I just wanted to check on you," he admitted. "After yesterday, I mean." Amara tilted her head slightly, her expression thoughtful. "You're sweet to worry about me, but don't stress too much. Those 3 aren't going to win this time." "But what if they try again?" Ethan asked. "They're not going to stop just because you called them out." Amara nodded, acknowledging his concern. "You're right. They might try something else, but we can't let them control us. We have to fight back. Not with anger or revenge, but by showing everyone who they really are." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked, his curiosity piqued. Amara grinned mischievously. "I've got an idea." Later that afternoon, after classes ended, Amara and Ethan met in the library. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional rustle of pages turning. Amara spread out some papers on a table while Ethan sat across from her, gripping his pencil nervously. "So here's the plan," Amara began. "We're going to expose them, to show everyone exactly what they're really like." "How?" Ethan asked, frowning. "They'll just deny everything." "Not if we have proof," Amara replied confidently. "You've seen how they act, right? How they pick on people and make fun of them?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, but no one ever says anything. Everyone's too scared." "That's why we need to give them a reason to speak up," Amara said. She pointed to the stack of drawings Ethan had brought with him. "Your art is powerful, Ethan. It tells stories that words can't. What if we use your talent to create something that shows the truth about Jake, Tyler, and Brianna? Ethan blinked, stunned by the suggestion. You want me to draw them? Not just them, Amara explained. We'll make posters, big ones, with your artwork and quotes from students who've been bullied. We'll put them up all over the school tomorrow morning so everyone sees them. Ethan felt a mix of excitement and fear bubbling inside him. What if they find out it was us? They won't, Amara said firmly. We'll stay careful. And even if they do figure it out, we'll face it together. Okay? Ethan hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. That evening, Ethan worked tirelessly on the drawings. He sketched scenes based on real events, the way Jake shoved smaller kids into lockers, how Tyler mocked someone for tripping during gym class, and how Brianna tore apart another. Students' homework in front of everyone. Each image was detailed and vivid, capturing the cruelty of the bullies perfectly. While Ethan drew, Amara collected quotes from students who had been affected by Jake, Tyler, and Brianna's behavior. Some were hesitant to share their stories at first, but Amara reassured them that their names wouldn't be included. By the time midnight rolled around, they had everything they needed. The next morning, before the sun rose, Amara and Ethan snuck onto the school grounds. They carried rolls of paper, tape, and markers, moving quickly and quietly through the empty hallways. One by one, they hung the posters in prominent places, near the cafeteria doors, outside the gym, and even in the main hallway where teachers often gathered. Each poster featured one of Ethan's drawings alongside a short quote. Beneath each image, Amara had written a simple message. This is what bullying looks like. Are you okay with it? By the time the first bell rang, the entire school was buzzing. Students stopped in front of the posters, staring in shock at the images and reading the quotes aloud. Some whispered angrily about Jake, Tyler, and Brianna. Others nodded in agreement, finally feeling validated for the pain they'd endured silently for so long. Brianna was the first to notice. She stormed into the hallway, her face red with fury. Who did this? She demanded, glaring at anyone nearby. Who put these up? No one answered. Instead, students exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from satisfaction to guilt. Jake and Tyler appeared moments later, equally outraged. They ripped down one of the posters and crumpled it in their hands. But it was too late. The damage had been done. Teachers began to take notice as well. Mr. Carter, the history teacher, paused in front of one of the posters and frowned deeply. Is this true? He asked a group of students standing nearby. One boy hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, that's what they're like. Word spread fast, reaching even the principal's office. By lunchtime, Jake, Tyler, and Brianna were called in for a meeting with the administration. Rumors swirled about possible suspensions or other consequences, but no official announcement was made yet. Ethan watched from afar, his heart pounding. He couldn't believe what they had accomplished. For years he had felt powerless against the bullies, but now, thanks to Amara's courage and his own art, he felt like he had finally taken a stand. Amara found him sitting alone under the tree where they had first met. She sat down beside him, grinning widely. Looks like our plan worked. It did, Ethan agreed, still in awe. But what happens now? Amara shrugged. Now we wait. Things won't change overnight, but at least people know the truth. That's a start. Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. As he glanced at Amara, he realized something else. He admired her more than he could put into words. She wasn't just brave, she was kind, smart, and determined. And somehow, despite all the chaos, she had made him feel like he mattered. You're pretty amazing, you know that? Ethan said quietly, looking down at his hands. Amara laughed softly. Nah, I'm just doing what needs to be done. Besides, she nudged him playfully. You're the one who made those incredible drawings. Without you, none of this would have worked. Ethan smiled shyly, unsure of how to respond. But deep down, he knew one thing for certain. Life at Maplewood High would never be the same, and neither would he. The days that followed the unveiling of the posters were unlike anything Maplewood High had ever seen. The school buzzed with whispers and debates, as if a storm had passed through and left everyone trying to make sense of what remained. Jake, Tyler, and Brianna had been suspended for 3 days after the principal reviewed the evidence against them. It wasn't just the posters. Students who had stayed silent for years finally came forward, sharing their stories in private meetings with teachers and counselors. For the first time, the bullies' reign of fear was crumbling. Amara and Ethan watched it all unfold from the sidelines. They didn't seek attention or praise, but they couldn't escape the gratitude of their classmates either. Some students approached Amara between classes to thank her for standing up to the trio. Others stopped Ethan in the hallways to compliment his artwork, marveling at how he had captured the truth so vividly. At first, Ethan felt overwhelmed by the sudden spotlight, but Amara encouraged him to embrace it. "You deserve this," she told him one afternoon as they sat together on the steps outside the gym. "Your art made people see things they'd been ignoring for too long." Ethan shook his head, still unsure. "I don't know. I didn't think anyone would care about my drawings." "Well, they do," Amara said firmly, "and you should be proud of that." Despite the progress, not everything changed overnight. While Jake, Tyler, and Brianna were gone for now, their absence created a strange tension in the school. Some students acted bolder, speaking up when they might have stayed quiet before. Others seemed uncertain, waiting to see if the bullies would return stronger than ever. Even the teachers walked a fine line, unsure whether to celebrate the shift or brace for backlash. For Brianna, the suspension felt like a personal attack. She spent her days pacing back and forth in her room, replaying the events in her mind. How could she have let someone like Amara, a new girl no less, outsmart her? Every time she thought about the posters, her fists clenched in anger. When she returned to school, she vowed to make Amara regret crossing her. On Monday morning, Jake, Tyler, and Brianna walked into the building with their heads held high, pretending nothing had changed. But the stares and whispers told a different story. Students avoided them in the hallways, and even their usual followers kept their distance. Brianna tried to act like she didn't care, but the cold shoulder from her peers stung more than she expected. During lunch, she spotted Amara sitting with Ethan and Mia near the edge of the cafeteria. Her blood boiled at the sight of them laughing together, completely unfazed by her return. She marched over, slamming her tray onto their table. "What's your problem?" Brianna snapped, glaring at Amara. Amara looked up calmly, meeting Brianna's gaze without flinching. "My problem? You're the one causing trouble, not me." Brianna leaned closer, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Putting up those stupid posters and turning everyone against us." "I didn't turn anyone against you," Amara replied evenly. "People saw the truth for themselves. You did that, not me." Brianna opened her mouth to retort but hesitated when she noticed the other students watching. Some glared at her while others simply looked away, refusing to engage. For the first time, Brianna realized she was outnumbered and powerless. Fuming, she grabbed her tray and stormed off, leaving behind an awkward silence. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Do you think she'll try something else?" "Probably," Amara admitted. "But we've already shown everyone who she really is. That's the most important part." As the weeks went by, life at Maplewood High began to settle into a new rhythm. Without the constant threat of bullying, students started to open up in ways they never had before. Cliques loosened, friendships formed across groups, and the atmosphere became lighter, freer. Even the quieter kids found their voices, joining clubs or participating in activities they'd once avoided. Ethan noticed the change in himself too. He no longer hid his sketchbook under his desk or apologized for drawing during class. Instead, he carried it proudly, showing off his work to anyone who asked. His confidence grew with each passing day, thanks in large part to Amara's unwavering support. One afternoon, after art club ended, Amara caught up with Ethan in the hallway. "Hey, I've got an idea," she said excitedly. "What if we turned your sketches into a real graphic novel?" Ethan blinked, stunned by the suggestion. "A graphic novel? Like, for real?" "Why not?" Amara asked. "You've got the talent." and I can help you write the story. We could start small, maybe publish it online or share it with friends. Who knows where it could go? Ethan hesitated, torn between excitement and doubt. I don't know. What if it's not good enough? It doesn't have to be perfect, Amara reminded him. It just has to be yours. Trust me, you'll regret it if you don't try. Her words stuck with him long after they parted ways. That night, Ethan sat at his desk, flipping through his old sketches. He imagined them coming to life as pages in a book, telling a story that readers could connect with. Slowly, an idea began to form in his mind, a tale about a shy artist who discovers hidden worlds within his own imagination. By the time he fell asleep, he had filled several pages with notes and rough outlines. Meanwhile, Amara found herself thinking about Ethan more and more. She admired his creativity, his determination, and the way he lit up when he talked about his dreams. She liked spending time with him, whether they were brainstorming ideas for the graphic novel or just hanging out after school. There was something special about him, something that made her want to be around him all the time. One Friday evening, as they worked on the project in the library, Amara glanced at Ethan and smiled. You know, you're pretty amazing, Ethan. I hope you realize that. Ethan looked up, startled by the compliment. Me? Amazing? I don't know about that. Well, I do, Amara said softly. You've come such a long way since I first met you, and I'm really proud of you. Ethan felt his cheeks grow warm, but he couldn't stop smiling. Thanks, Amara. I wouldn't have done any of this without you. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, surrounded by books and half-finished sketches. Then, almost impulsively, Amara blurted out, Do you want to grab some ice cream later, my treat? Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. Are you asking me out? Amara laughed nervously, suddenly aware of how bold she sounded. Yeah, I guess I am. Is that okay? Ethan grinned, his heart racing. Yeah, that sounds great. That evening, as they walked to the ice cream shop together, Ethan felt a sense of happiness he hadn't known was possible. For so long he had believed he didn't belong anywhere, that he was destined to fade into the background. But Amara had changed everything. She had shown him that he mattered, that his dreams were worth pursuing, and that he deserved to be happy. As they sat side by side eating their cones and laughing about silly things, Ethan realized something else. He was falling for her. And judging by the way she smiled at him, he thought maybe, just maybe, she might feel the same way. The weeks turned into months, and Maplewood High continued to transform. The posters that Amara and Ethan had created became a symbol of change, not just for the school but for the students themselves. Kids who had once been afraid to speak up now felt empowered to stand against injustice. Teachers noticed the shift too, praising the newfound sense of community in the hallways. Conversations about kindness, respect, and courage began to replace the old gossip and fear. For Ethan, life had taken on a vibrancy he'd never imagined. He spent hours every week working on his graphic novel with Amara's guidance. Her enthusiasm pushed him to dig deeper into his imagination, crafting characters and worlds that felt alive. The story he was creating wasn't just fiction. It was a reflection of his journey, his struggles, and his triumphs. Each page brought him closer to something he could truly call his own. Amara, too, found joy in helping Ethan bring his vision to life. She loved watching his confidence grow as he refined his art and storytelling. More than anything, she loved seeing how happy it made him. Their evenings together, whether brainstorming ideas or laughing over shared snacks, became the highlight of her days. Slowly but surely, their bond deepened. Neither of them said the words out loud yet, but it was clear to anyone who saw them. They cared about each other deeply. One crisp autumn afternoon, Amara and Ethan decided to take a break from their project and go for a walk around the school grounds. The leaves had turned shades of orange and red, crunching underfoot as they strolled along the edge of the soccer field. Ethan carried his sketchbook tucked under his arm, occasionally stopping to jot down notes or sketch quick doodles inspired By the scenery. You know, Amara said after a while. This place feels so different now. It's like people are finally being honest with each other. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, I guess we all needed a push to see things clearly. And you gave us that push, Amara added, smiling at him. Not just me, Ethan replied quickly. It was you. You're the one who stood up to Jake, and Brianna when no one else would. Amara shrugged modestly. I just did what felt right, but honestly, I couldn't have done any of it without you. Your drawings made people listen. They exchanged a glance, both smiling shyly before continuing their walk. The air was cool, but the warmth between them kept the chill at bay. Later that evening, as they sat together in the library finishing up some edits to the graphic novel, Ethan hesitated before speaking. Amara? She asked, looking up from her notebook. I've been thinking. He paused, unsure of how to put his feelings into words. You've done so much for me. Not just with the graphic novel, but with everything. I don't think I've ever told you how much that means to me. Amara set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. You don't have to thank me, Ethan. I'm just glad I could help. It's more than that, Ethan said softly. You've changed my life. Before you came here, I didn't think I mattered to anyone. But now I feel like maybe I do. Amara's expression softened. Of course you matter, Ethan. You always have. You just needed someone to remind you. Ethan looked down at his hands, his voice barely above a whisper. Well, you reminded me. And I really like you, Amara. Like, a lot. Amara felt her heart skip a beat. She hadn't expected him to say it so directly, but hearing the words filled her with a quiet happiness. I really like you too, Ethan, she admitted, her cheeks flushing slightly. More than I can say. A wide smile spread across Ethan's face, lighting up his entire demeanor. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The understanding between them was enough. As winter approached, Ethan finished the first draft of his graphic novel. With Amara's encouragement, he decided to share it online, uploading chapters bit by bit to a platform where aspiring artists posted their work. To his surprise, readers responded enthusiastically, leaving comments and messages praising his creativity and storytelling. One user even wrote, "This is exactly the kind of story I needed to read right now. Thank you." Seeing those words made Ethan feel invincible. He realized that his art wasn't just for him anymore. It was touching lives just as Amara had believed it would. Together they celebrated each milestone, cheering as the number of followers grew and sharing dreams of someday publishing a physical copy of the book. But beyond the success of the graphic novel, the biggest change was in Ethan himself. He no longer shied away from crowds or avoided eye contact in the hallways. Instead, he greeted classmates warmly, joined conversations, and even signed up for the school talent show to display some of his artwork. When he stepped onto the stage on the night of the performance, holding up his sketches for everyone to see, the applause was thunderous. Amara stood in the front row, beaming with pride. Jake, Tyler, and Brianna, meanwhile, faded into the background. Without their usual followers, they struggled to reclaim their influence. Some students still avoided crossing them, but most ignored their attempts to regain control. Brianna tried to stir up trouble a few more times, but her efforts fell flat. Eventually, she stopped trying altogether, retreating into herself as others moved on. By spring, Maplewood High felt like a completely different place. Friendships blossomed across cliques, and events like dances and sports games drew record attendance. Even the teachers seemed happier, encouraged by the positive energy radiating through the school. In the midst of it all, Amara and Ethan remained inseparable, their relationship growing stronger with each passing day. On a warm April afternoon, they sat together under the same tree where they had first met. Ethan flipped through his sketchbook, showing Amara new ideas for the next chapter of his graphic novel. She listened intently, offering suggestions and laughing at his jokes. When they finally closed the book and leaned back against the trunk, Amara reached over and took Ethan's hand. You know, she said quietly, when I first got here, I didn't expect to find someone like you. Someone like me. Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow playfully. Yeah, Amara teased. Someone brave, talented, and way cooler than I gave you credit for. Ethan laughed, squeezing her hand gently. Well, I didn't expect to meet someone like you either. Someone who makes me believe I can do anything. They sat there for a long time, watching the sun dip below the horizon and paint the sky in hues of pink and gold. Life wasn't perfect. There were still challenges ahead, but for the first time, neither of them was afraid to face them. Together, they had proven that strength doesn't always come from loud voices or bold actions. Sometimes it comes from standing together, believing in yourself, and trusting in the power of kindness. And as they walked home hand in hand, ready to tackle whatever came next, they knew one thing for sure. They had already changed the world, a little bit at a time.